In that book, one of the characters who actually has eco-anxiety, has been suffering from eco-anxiety and is very sensitive, she ends up saving the day at the end with this large sea beast that ends up getting into the assembly hall. And she proposes that they all, and there's 100 kids there. She proposes when they're getting ready to kill this monster, after you can imagine a lot of false conclusions and dark nights of the soul and all the things that go into the adventure series. She proposes they give the monster a hug, and they put their hands on shoulders, and they connect with this sea beast, who, after all, is still part of the biosphere and part of everything that we've
Right.
collectively made. However, when people ask me about my world building, I say, no, 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 we're not world building here. So the stories take place, admittedly, in a kind of magical setting. It's an eco school, it's shrouded in mist, a kind of Avalon off the north coast of England, very secretive. And it's the world's top eco students. So kids from everywhere who get invited to this. But the point I need to make is that the school and the action and the characters are all a version of today's world. So it's not like I'm giving the
Mm,
reader a free pass and saying, no, this is some world that I created, which is over there with all these problems that, by
right.
the way, you're going to have to fix. It's definitely realism, but I wanted to go then with this fantastical overlay.
And I find it interesting because going to what you were saying relating to fantasy fiction, I think about the series that the biggest series that I ever read, which was the Sword of Truth series, that I can't even remember how many books it is right now. And I remember that there's one book, I think it's like book 4 or 5, that talks about this area that does have a kind of world building sort of, and the area that it talks about is basically communism, but done in this very fantasy
Right.
fiction sort of way. And I remember thinking to myself about halfway through the book going, I'm Cuban, I grew up listening to things around communism, and I've always had lots of different ideas about communism, but this was probably the best, like, practical implications in both its beauty and the horrors of communism that you could ever have written. Like, if I would have written if I would have read a regular book that talked about communism was
Right,
this,
right.
this, and that,